Hi, my name is Cindy Rang with the Fabric Patch in Ephrata, Washington. You can find us at fabricpatch.net. And we are doing block number 2, the pieced block in our Jaye's Bouquet block of the month. All right, class number 4, we're like whisking right along here. So this is our block of the month that we've been working on. This is Corey Turner's pattern. I love, love, love her. I love her fabric. I love her designs. She does a really nice job of putting together pieced quilts with hand embroidery. She has multiple patterns. If you go to our website, you can find some of her fabric lines. I think we have 2 fabric lines from her. She has 2 published books, both from Martingale, and then lots of patterns. We have all of her patterns. This particular one is a block of the month. We sell it all together, so you don't have to worry about getting one month and then block number 2 the second month and third month. Just get the whole thing. All you have to do is collect a bunch of threads that you're using, get some fabric together. We no longer have kits of either of those available, but you can use stuff from your own stash or email us and we'll help you put something together. So what we're doing is we're doing a block a month. So this is block number 1. This was our first month, and we did first the embroidery block and then we did the piece block. This was a fun little technique with some embroidery, some hand applique. And then this was block number 2. We just did this one 2 weeks ago where we talked about the hand embroidery stitches. And I think we did 6 different stitches on our first block. We did 3 stitches on our second block. And starting on our third block, we're not only going to do the stitches that she talks about, but I'm going to start adding some funky, different, unusual, unique stitches that you might want to add just in case you want to change it up just a little bit. This sample behind us was actually done by Jennifer Oates, a very good friend. She got hers entirely done, and she did hers exactly in the same colorway and exactly the same stitches that Corey did with hers, which is really, really nice because as we go along, you'll see that I might change up the colors just a little bit and change up the stitches just a little bit. All right, so the class today, what we're going to be doing is we're doing this pieced block, and this is just a little, these blocks are 6-inch finished, but it's kind of cool the way that they're long and the way that everything is oriented here. So this is just a churn dash block and a square block. The other thing I want to point out, and we'll look at it again at the end, is that she adds a little bit of hand embroidery, a feather stitch and a fly stitch around these, which make it kind of fun. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our fabric. Okay, we do like to mention that the pattern is required. There isn't any kind of a downloadable thing. You need the pattern to be able to do all of the hand embroidery and then all of the measurements for the pieced blocks. So with your pattern, what is kind of nice is she gives you the full size for tracing your embroidery, and then she also gives you, I don't have it in front of me, a blow up picture so that you can see her hand stitching really easily, and you'll see that in the classes that we do that show the embroidery. And then also on here is all of the piece for these blocks. I want to mention that there is one little typo right here where she says on here from the cream floral, she says to cut 1 square 2.5 by 12.5. Of course, that needs to be 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Other than that, everything is really good. We're going to look over here. She gives you the little cutting chart of what you're going to need to cut for your churn dash block and your square and a square. So if you look over here, we've got our 2 strips. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the sewing machine in just a minute. I'm going to flip those together, and you can see I changed out my colors a little bit. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam along the end there. We have these, the 2 7/8 inch blocks. I'm going to lay these right sides together, and then with my either a friction marker, which is a mark that comes off with an iron, or with a pencil, whichever you prefer, I'm going to draw a line from diagonal to diagonal, and then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch on one side, 1/4 inch on the other, and that's how I'm going to make my half square triangles. I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back on that. The only other piece that I need for my churn dash block is I need a center block. And then these are the pieces that I have for the square and a square block. Super simple because this block, oh my gosh, it's just my center. And you can go ahead and fussy cut something if you'd like to. This is just kind of the way that it turned out while we were cutting, and I kind of liked that. And again, I changed up my colors just a little bit, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to sew that one, press those open, and once those are at that 1/4 inch seam allowance, what will happen is this will fit on there perfectly, and I'll sew those, and then I end up with my square and a square block. So I might sew this whole thing together for you really fast. I'm going to sew these, and then I'll be right back. All right, I have a little bit of mess here, but so here's what we've done. We have pieced our square and a square. Came out exactly right. If yours comes out a little bit too big, you could square it up if you need to, but it comes out exactly the size that it's supposed to be. And then from our square that we drew our line, and we sewed 1/4 inch on each side. And then when you press it open, you do end up with these little dog ears. I always suggest that you absolutely snip those off. You don't want those to be part of your quilt. They just end up in your seam allowance, and they end up with funny little bunches, and nobody needs any of that. So what happens is these are going to be in the corners. And then this piece that we sewed the 1/4 inch seam allowance on, you have about an extra 1.5 inches here, but what you're going to do is you're going to measure down your 2.5 inches, cut that, press that open, and that's what's going to go here. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut. Whenever you do cut, you want to make sure that you are using your ruler to measure, not your mat. There's one. There's one. So, ooh, not even that much. There's not a lot left over. That's how much extra is left. So measure carefully. This one goes in the center. These, I'm going to go ahead and press these really fast. All right, pressed all of these, and just a little word about pressing that, of course, the whole reason that you're pressing is you're pressing that seam open. So that's all you really need to do. You don't have to go crazy about that. You just want to make sure that everything is nice and flat so that everything fits right where it's supposed to fit as you put all of these together. Oh, and again, you want to just cut off those little dog ears. Those just have no point in being in your quilt. They will cause nothing but trouble. All right, and there is our little churn dash block. And so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew this row together, sew this row together, sew this row together, and then sew those up, and that is my little churn dash block. All right, and so here is, in whatever colors you might have picked or the colors that she suggested, we've got our churn dash block up here, we have our square and a square block here, and then you'll end up sewing those together. And then she suggested, again, the feather stitch on the top, and she suggested the fly stitch around the inside, which I think is absolutely darling. The two things I want to add about that is that I still would make sure that I have some sort of a stabilizer behind my piece before I do my stitching. It doesn't make any difference if you're doing embroidery on this piece of cotton or on this piece of cotton. No matter what, you need something that's going to offer a little bit of stability to that, and also something that will hide any of those trailing threads. So we've talked about that in the other two embroidery block classes, and you can use whatever you'd like. I know that Corey likes to use a, I think it's called Soft and Stay, is what she likes as a little stabilizer. It's a fusible. I have to say that for me personally, just because I've been hand stitching for forever and ever and ever, this I didn't care for. I didn't care for it because I felt that it had a little bit of a drag to it that I didn't like. And so I like little bits of batting. Sometimes I use cotton, sometimes I use a polyester. You can't tell on the quilt which one is which. It's not going to matter. It's just, again, something that adds a little bit of texture, a little bit of opportunity to hide any trailing stitches or knots or weird threads that you have. So you will want to add that behind your piece. All right, so we have completed our first two blocks, and in 2 weeks we will have block number 3 2 weeks after that, we'll have the pieced block. You can certainly work ahead if you'd like to, and maybe just sort of work on piecing these blocks. The blocks are super, super simple. They're all very beginner blocks, kind of fun techniques. It's just such a cute quilt the way that the whole thing is put together with a mixture of hand embroidery and piecing. So thanks for joining us. Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.